This week on Case Studies with the Biz Doc, you asked for it, I got it. It's Toast, the restaurant POS point-of-sale system that's revolutionizing the industry. We're going to cover the birth, the venture funding, and where they're going, and amazing valuation along the way. This week. Toast, the restaurant POS system, point of sale. But it's more than that. It's all encompassing, and I'm going to take you through the story. Let's start where the founders come from, which is very interesting, and how they applied knowledge from one space to another. There were three founders, actually, that came out of a company called Indica that was swallowed by Oracle, and the three founders parachuted out and started the company. The three founders are these guys: Steve Fredette, who was president, Aman Narang, who later was president, and John Grimm, who was CTO. They went to school together at MIT, actually, before they got to Indica, and by the way, that means they were probably pretty smart guys. But how did they end up making software for restaurants, coming out of MIT, being engineers, and working at a database company that would later be acquired by Oracle? After they were acquired by Oracle, the vision was to bring things together in the restaurant industry, to bring all these disparate systems together. Now, in all my reading and everything, I don't know whether they had that thought on day 1, day 10, or a year in, but ultimately they would get to the point where they were bringing a lot of disparate systems together. They said, why does the cash register and the point of sale at a restaurant have to be different from the modern day ordering that you want to do online? You want to have ordering online. You want to have loyalty cards, cloud-based systems. We can do all of that. And so the vision was to bring all that together, and that started in 2012. They got some investment from other people who had exited Indica after Oracle bought them, because if Oracle's buying them, you assume there was something of an exit there, and with people's equity in stock, they were actually put some money in their pocket, which was some of the seed funding here. I don't have the details on how much who put in, but it's pretty clear that we'll call them the Indica Mafia, got together to form the company. And so you had two sets of systems that they're putting together. One, point of sale, and the other, social loyalty. Put them all together, and you can put the whole meal on one plate, which is a phrase I made up as I was reading this, because that's what I thought about as putting it together. So I changed it to put the whole business on one platform. So put the whole business on one platform. And that was kind of what I gathered out of it in studying the strategic statements that they made and how it all came together. Now, what I was able to find out about Indica was this, is it was basically like a complex database that put together disparate systems in a single flexible data model. And when I read about that, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of technical things there that you'd have to understand, databases and stuff, but disparate systems coming together to one platform per restaurant, and disparate data and data sources and data formats coming together as Indica did, which was very interesting to Oracle, who builds databases. And it's no wonder that they get acquired by Oracle. So it's sort of interesting as you see the conceptual thinking of the engineers came together, and that's where it became very evident to me that what you had here is really smart people who are accustomed to putting the disparate into one platform or one database. And you can see that their engineering know-how and their history brings Toast into view. So what is Toast made up of? Well, let's go take a look at the product elements, but first, let's look at the money they raise, because the money they raise, the momentum, kind of tells you about the success that the product elements were having in the market. Well, they start out with the Series A in 2015, and it was about $3 million Series A, and I have a ×2 debt there because they actually raised about $3 million in debt at the same time. So they had something there in terms of software or personal guarantees, because you got to put that up for the debt. So they had about $6 million really getting off the ground about 3 years after the three amigos leave Indico, bought by Oracle in 2012, which was the point of founding by the company. Now, it was interesting here, they got there and evidently they said, hey, we need a CEO. So they looked around, they thought, who? Wait, I've got it. We've got these executives from Indica that had done some of our seed financing. We all came from Indica Oracle. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's go get one of our compadres. So they did. And they went and they got this guy, Chris Comparato. Chris was at Indica running a certain key part of the business and was recruited to be the CEO. So as you can see, this is all Indica and MIT gathering to build what is a restaurant POS system. Interesting. Smart people can do anything. as long as they research the industry and it has applicability. So let's look at what they built. They built the Toast point of sale system first at about the time they raised $6 million. Then they raised $30 million, that's 10 times more 1 year later in 2016. Some of the key players involved, Bessemer and GV, which is Google Ventures, simply known as GV. So now they've got $36 million, remember the debt's there too, in 2016. There's a point here where they announced they had their 1,000th customer signed up, or restaurant signing up using the system. Now that's significant. And then raised money in 2017, $101 million raised. And along this time, they joined the Unicorn Club. There's a unicorn, poorly drawn, but a unicorn nonetheless, with a $1.4 billion valuation they have here. So now let's take a look. In 5 years, really a concentration of 3 years, you have a group of guys from Indica comes over with a vision to build this, and they build a $1.4 billion valuation company. That's pretty impressive. So what happens next? Well, it looks like that the momentum acceleration continued, because from 2017, 2018, a year later, then they raised the Series D, $115 million. It was Bessemer and Google Ventures and some others that were involved, but they stayed along for the ride. They weren't abandoning it. They were continuing to invest, followed by a Series E in 2019 of $250 million, which is pretty interesting, at a $2.3 billion valuation. An important point to make here as you go into this is you take a look at the valuation, because Tiger Global did mark up the valuation. And you look, the Unicorn Club happened in 2016-17. They doubled that by the time they get to 2019, more than doubled it. And all of a sudden, they then double that again from 2.3 to $5 billion. That is damn! They are 5x into the Unicorn Club, as with that valuation and the investment where Tiger Global was a key part. Go check out the case study I did a couple weeks ago on Tiger Global. They usually give premium valuations, but they go in big. And Tiger and a group of other investors put $400 million in, and right at the start of 2020 at a $5 billion valuation. In the restaurant industry, at the beginning of 2020, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Hey, Biz Doc, isn't that when COVID hit globally? It is. And these folks suddenly had issues. During 2020, they actually laid off 40 to 50% of their workforce, but they were actually also credited for doing what they could to help restaurants that were just clinging to their lease, hoping that the COVID and vaccinations and everything could catch up with this terrible pandemic, and that the business would come back and cities could be reopened again. Because remember, first we're wearing masks and we can't gather, then we can gather sometimes, and we can gather some places, then restaurants can only have takeout at the curb. Finally, restaurants can have maybe the bar open 6 feet, but also pickup, and finally restaurants could open. So it was a horrible, horrible time. And they got a lot of negative press. Oh, you got $400 million and yet you're laying off these people. But that $400 million belongs to the investors. So think about that way. But nonetheless, they tried to put together programs to say, hey, if you need to use the platform for a little while and you need to use it for free, we're going to try and help you do it. We're all in this together and we're trying to get there. Well, I'm happy to say in 2021, if you go take a look at Glassdoor, you will see great recognition of the company and great recognition that there are jobs available, and they are rehiring now, so they got through it. So I think that is credit to the team that was there. And along the way, this all-in-one platform, remember, disparate coming together, making one unit. They added handheld access through mobile. They added payroll systems. They added gift cards and loyalty and online ordering. Now you have to remember, gift cards were made by gift card companies. There was one that was very large here in Dallas that just did gift cards and loyalty. That was the only business they had. Instead, this is all together. Your point of sale system, your menu, your checkouts, your check systems, your sign-offs and things. And rather than all of these complicated machines that you would buy, you're running stuff on them, iPads and tablets. Then your payroll system and online ordering to integrate with your website. And suddenly the whole restaurant can come together, from being run with point of sale, payroll on the inside, to running it online to gift cards and loyalty inside and online customers, and suddenly they are leading. Now, before I get to the lessons, there's three things I'd like to credit them for. And the first is, if you go take a look at their website, I think they do one of the finest jobs I've seen among early stage companies. And I know they're only 8 years old here, but still, that's not a 25-year-old company. And I think what they have done in terms of presenting the competitive set and presenting their product, go take a look at what Toast has done online. They do a wonderful job of comparing, obviously, their best features against industry incumbents, including Micros, which is, oh wait, Oracle? These guys? Maybe Oracle gets a taste for buying Toast at some point in time. It's a simple quant, may be far off what Oracle would ever do, but it certainly is a thought. When Micros is owned by Oracle, and Aloha, which is run by NCR, and then of course you have Square and Clover, which are people that are new to the space with a lot of backing behind them. But the competitive set online, there's something really to learn there that I think is a lesson. The second thing I liked is if you go down on the Teams page, they have a playlist on Spotify that I've been listening to for the last 2 days. I think it's kind of cool and very human of the company to present this playlist. And there is all kinds of, you talk about disparate, their playlist has got a little of everything. And I think it's a credit to the fabric of Toast and what they represented there. And the third thing that I think is pretty cool about the company is the product itself. I took some time to kind of just read about the product and dive into it a little bit more than I normally do. And I can really see how restaurants are utilizing this and the difference it's making operational and ease. So I can focus on my food, on my customers, my local market, the aesthetics, my decor, everything that goes with my restaurant, because everything else is being taken care of for me. I don't have to invent anything. I have all these wonderful tools to do the administrative side of it. Well, along with my marketing and how I do my loyalty, that's my decision. But there's so much administration here that they take care of so they can focus on the clientele, the food, and what really makes a restaurant great. And so I really think those are three things I think are pretty hip. The lessons, I think I've talked about them as we went along here. Lessons, apply your thinking. They certainly applied the thinking from a database company to a restaurant platform company. And before I get to the second point, which is get the band back together, I get to do things really well, because I really think these are out of order. Doing things really well means everything they did was crisp. If you take a look at the product and you take a look at the elements that are on it, I'm sure in their darkest moments, they sit there and they go, oh my gosh, this is buggy or that's buggy, because that's the nature of software. But overall, when these components come together, everything that I've read and responses from customers said that they did each one of these things really, really well. And then getting the band back together. For those of you old enough to remember, it's kind of the opposite of the Yardbirds. The Yardbirds didn't get the band back together. Everybody went elsewhere. Well, in the case of Indica, they don't break up like the Yardbirds to have all these successes. That would be the PayPal story. Instead, they sort of keep the band together. The three of them going off to create it, later bringing back Chris Comparato to join them, so the Indica band stays together, and it's Indica, the food version. What a great company, what a great product. That's what I think about Toast, but what do you think? Leave a comment down below. I answer as many as I can, and while you're there, subscribe to Valuetainment, the best channel on the internet for entrepreneurial content, and hit the bell so you get notifications when new episodes show up. If you like this case study, check this one out from the Biz Doc archive. I think you'll like it too. Until next time, I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc, and I hope I left you better than I found you.